Swadikap, welcome back to Go Live Free podcast. I am Stephen, host of this show. Today I'm joined by a very special person in my life. I'm joined by my wife, Miss Alyssa de Burma, no longer Rook. Sorry, please don't take offense, but yeah, I married her and now she is de Burma. Are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, we came here separate ways. I came here from India. She came from America. We didn't know each other, but the Lord brought us together, and here we are, married and having fun. Anyways, I'll straight get to the question. Yeah, like I told you, we came from different places. Alyssa, tell us where you are from and what you're doing here, and share how did you end up in Thailand.
Well, I'm from a small town, I guess you could call it small, in Indiana. It's Fishers, Indiana, and it's now, I guess, considered a city. So it's growing. But when I was younger, it was small.
See, oftentimes our friends tell us she's from Indiana. India. That's why she ended up marrying an Indian.
Yeah, you never know. I feel like it played a role. So, yeah, I was born in Ohio, but lived most of my life in Indiana. And then I launched from there to Myanmar in about 2019, the end of 2019 going to 2020. So I was getting ready to go in 2019 and then left in February 2020. And then really have been on the mission field since, on and off a little bit, with a break in 2021. I came back to the States for 6 months and then went to here, came here.
That's amazing. So how long it has been overseas? Maybe
Overseas, it's almost been 5 years.
5 years.
Yeah.
All right. So before you came for missions overseas, what were you doing in America?
Well, in America, I was a nurse. I worked in a hospital, so I did that.
Guys, she's my wife. I know all these details, but for the sake of the interview, I have to ask these questions so those who are watching know who the guest is.
So I worked there as a nurse in a hospital for 6 years with a stint in a nursing home too. So as a nurse, I worked formally for about 6 years.
So how from nursing to mission field, how did that change?
That's a great question. Well, I always say my calling to missions was before my calling to nursing. So when I was in the 6th grade, we had these we had a special week where we all dressed up for different days done school, and one of them was career day, what you wanted to be when you grew up. And I really wanted to be a missionary. I felt like the Lord was calling me to be a missionary, but I didn't know how you dress up as a missionary. So I ended
Interesting. I didn't know this side of the story, this part of the story. She never told me. Anyways,
it's
go
slightly
ahead.
embarrassing. But anyways, I dressed up how I thought a missionary would look. And just to preface, the Bible has we're all called to missions. So really a missionary can look like anything or anyone. But I had this turtleneck with this jacket and then this Bible. And I was ready. No flashy clothing, no makeup, no nothing. I thought, I'm being very modest and I'm ready. And really, honestly, though, I was sitting at my desk that day in my homeroom and I opened my Bible because I was like, I brought my Bible. It's missionary day or career day, but my day was missionary day. And the Lord just really revealed to me, he brought me to Matthew 28 at the very end when the Great Commission happens and he sends the disciples out and says, go and make more and go into all the world. And I felt like that calling was for me. And I specifically felt like it was overseas. But I was in the 6th grade, so I didn't know what that looked like. And so I spent the next few years just praying what that would look like. And I am a slow to change person. So I just I was waiting for a sign. And really the sign came in very, very small ways. it came through my mom saying, hey, let's have you shadow a nurse. And I was super shy. So I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. But I was like, okay, I can shadow. So I shadowed 2 different units. And the first one I fainted on. And so I was like, is this for me? And the second one was on a pediatric oncology unit. Basically, it's kids with cancer. And I really fell in love with how the way a nurse was able to really reach people in a way that other people couldn't, and how they could care for people in a way that others couldn't. And that was like an opening to my eyes of like, this is how missions could work in like in maybe in my calling. So I continued to step into that, and I volunteered on a pediatric unit, and then started looking at universities, and then chose to go nursing all the way. But some people, like in college, they were 2 ways. They were like, you can just go straight to the mission field. And others were like, no, education and having time and practice, like actually working as a nurse, will help down the road. And I prayed, like, what was that supposed to look like for me? Because I'm a slow to change person, I felt like the Lord really was leading me to take the slow route. And I had a lot of growing up that I needed to do. So I spent 4 years in college, and the Lord really worked in my heart then in so many ways, breaking me of a lot of things, because I was really realized like I wanted to control my life, and I didn't know that I did, but I realized that I wanted to control it. So then I was trying to control it in each area, in grades, in how I ate and how I looked, and it was starting to destroy me. And actually, even spiritually, like instead of like having a relationship with God, it was becoming a religion. So it started to like reflect on the outside too. I was becoming very lonely, very depressed, losing weight, until it really hit a peak right before I went to college. And my parents started to notice, and they're like, you need help. And it's like, I don't need help. I'm like, only people who are like actively struggling with sin help. And that sounds so judgmental. But at that point, I was blind to what my like sin was. And really, finally, it took counseling and talking with different spiritual guy. Like there was a spiritual counselor I went and saw, and then I also had like a dietitian. But even though those people helped, like I do really thank the Lord for them. It was really the Lord who broke me of my sin and helped me realize like trying to take control over my life and not letting Him rule it and Him show me what my calling was and Him lead me was sin. And in such a way, it was like I was becoming God over my whole life. And I thought I was the most religious person ever. And realizing how selfish and prideful that was broke me. And the Lord really showed me that was sin. And so from that point in college, so really I didn't have a complete turnaround to my sophomore year in college. Going into my junior year, it was kind of like the summer in between. And that's when I really started to heal. Like the time that I was spending with the different counselors actually was helping. I spent almost 4 years with them, but it wasn't until the last year and a half that I really started to improve, because I hadn't repented. I hadn't recognized what was going on deeper underneath. And then the Lord continued to reveal His calling slowly through the nursing. Graduated, worked in the hospital, well, a nursing home, then a hospital for a few years, and then started traveling. So I was super shy. So actually, I never went out of the country till I graduated college. And then I started traveling, and I traveled so much.
I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt you. I know during the college as well, you traveled overseas, right?
Oh, yeah.
As part of as part of your course.
That's
Is that correct?
true. I guess that was my senior year was, I guess, my first time out of the country.
What was it? I know it's in Africa. How was the experience? Like, did that help you see missions in a different way?
Yeah, it really did. I feel like that was another formative period. So my college, I went to Indiana Wesleyan University, and so their requirement for your final year as a nurse was to go somewhere like have a transcultural experience. It could have been inside the country or outside the country. But I felt like the Lord was calling me outside the country, even though I'd never been. And so you had to do this whole application process. And I thought there's no way I'm going to get in because I'm super shy and having an interview seems super scary. But I felt like the Lord telling me to. My roommate actually really encouraged me to because she really wanted to go. So I was like, okay, let me try. And so I prayed and I went to the interview. And in the interview, I really felt like the Lord revealing to me not necessarily like how healed I was, but the progress, what he was doing in my life. Because they asked me specific questions that I had to be very vulnerable with them, that I had an eating disorder, that I was healing, and that I wasn't completely healed, but like I was actively climbing towards freedom, and that I didn't know if that was going to be okay with them. Because physically looking at me, I was still pretty thin, and mentally, spiritually, I was doing great because, well, much better anyways. So I don't know. The Lord must have spoke to them because they let me join, and that program lasted 3 months, almost 3 months, and we went to Zambia, Africa, and so we worked in field hospitals and we worked in the community, and that really showed me like that's what I wanted to do. It showed me like how you could come alongside the community and not change the community, but be with the people.
Partnership.
And partner with them and learn from them yourself. And that's what I wanted to do. And felt like the Lord further confirming. And for my friend, she felt called to Africa. And I was like, I wish it was Africa, but I just know it's not Africa. So I was kind of bummed going back because, like, while I knew it was an amazing trip, I knew the one answer I really wanted of, like, where I was going to go was still not answered yet. It really wasn't answered till about several years later, about 6 years later.
About 6 years later, which is obviously Burma. That's where you went
Yeah.
first. Yeah, talk us through that. Like, how was your stay in Burma? How did that? How God revealed it to you that you are to go there, and how did all this process happen, from your nursing to moving to Burma as a missionary?
Yeah. So Myanmar was never in the picture. Really, anywhere God sent me has never been in the picture. And so I love kids and I love working with kids. So at the church where I was actively attending and still call my home church, Horizon Christian Fellowship, that's where I met a family called the Moons. And I was doing Sunday school in Awana, and I was a leader in Awana Sparkies group. And if you don't know what that is, it's like it's a Bible memorization type of club, and it really encourages the kids to learn the Word of God. And so this family joined with 2 girls, and one of the girls was in my group, and I had about 6 of them. And she was very unique. Like, she just had so much energy and life and laughter, and I was always making me laugh, and was really like became a buddy to me. And so she and I became pretty close. And then her younger sister also attended some of the other kids' things that I was involved in. So really I got to know their youngest 2, because they had 4 kids, more than them at first. So a while passed, about a year, and God started to work on their hearts and started to call them out. And then they didn't officially leave that year later, but in a year or 2, they started to prepare to go to Myanmar. That's where they felt called. And then so I was really sad, because at that point I got to know them really well, and their 2 youngest, Juliana and Genevieve, were like my buddies, especially Juliana being in my Awana group. And so I was sad to see them go and wanted to support them in any way, because at this point, even though I hadn't gone yet, I was wanting to support missionaries. So I was just supporting them in prayer or whatever I could do. So I was like, let me know how I can come alongside you. And so they're like, well, visit us sometime. And I was like, oh, sure. But I never fully committed, like, I will visit you. Like, it was just like a verbal. I'll try. Then about a year after they had moved, another part of our church family, they're named Al and Pat, they invited me to go. and go with them on this missions trip. And in this case, it was a little over a week's mission trip. I want to say it was like 10 days, something like that. I might be wrong on the timing. But it was going to be a missions trip and to really encourage the Moon family. So it's like, why not? Let's go. So I started to at that point, I really said yes. And I don't even know why I said yes. I think I was just so excited to see them. And I was like, okay, another opportunity to go overseas. Because at this point, I finally had the travel bug. I was wanting to go places and see, and I wanted to see them. And so not knowing where this place was or what it would be like, we started the phone calls of planning to go and what my role would be. And for this trip, it was I was part of the games. So I was super excited about that and helping with the games and participating in the games and different things like that. So I couldn't wait. And so we get over there, and I just, from the moment I landed and just started to see the people, and the way that the Moons lived and interacted with the people, I just had this unnatural love for the people, and couldn't come from anyone. And it wasn't just a love for the Moons, which I already had, but it was a love for the people there, and just something stirring in me that was like, you'll be back. So then, not long later, I returned again. I think it was the following year. There was one time I went twice in 1 year. So I think, maybe it was towards the end of that year. They had another team going. And it was a medical missions trip. It's like, yes. And
that's my field. I can't miss that.
I can't miss it. And the Moons at that point had introduced me to a clinic there that they had gotten to know the owner of, and they're like, there could be some possibility for you to work there. Because in Myanmar at that time, it was easier to get a nursing license as a foreigner. It actually wasn't too hard. And so I was like, okay, let's go. Maybe this is the reason. But I still hadn't fully committed, but feeling like Myanmar might be in the future. Yeah. So then I went with the intent of most likely wanting to come back, but still not completely sure. And went with this team that I had met before, and they just really loved on me as well and poured into me alongside the Moon family. And while I was there, I just really felt again that the Lord confirmed, yes, you're supposed to come back. There were more opportunities with the people, furthering relationships I had started on the first trip, even though it was just really brief, and really felt like, yes, it was. But then the question was, when? How soon? And people were saying, well, you could go tomorrow. And then some people were saying, no, you should wait a couple years. And then it's like, well, what's right for me? And the Lord really knew it was going to take time for me. And I prayed what would that look like? And I felt like I needed a number because I needed a goal to work towards, but I also knew it wasn't going to be tomorrow. And for me, I'd really, really despise goodbyes. And so I knew that goodbyes were important for me.
But hard as well.
Hard. So I felt like that he wanted me to take a year. And that was hard in some ways because it was still a long ways away and not being able to see the end. But then the journey started of saying goodbye to the people I worked with and the people I lived with. And in that year, it was one of the hardest years I think I've had. There have been a few more after that I would say topped it. But at that point in life, that was the hardest year that I had lived yet. And a lot of that had to do with what was God was preparing me for
the future
and how hard it was going to be down the road. And part of that had to do with I decided I was a very shy person, and my parents didn't really shelter me, but I lived a sheltered life. I had never lived on my own till I was 24, 25.
After deciding to go to the mission field to Burma, right?
And I felt like I needed to live on my own. I mean, I was earning my own money, paying for my own things, pitching in at the house, paying them rent, but I had never lived on my own. And so I felt like I was supposed to. So I decided to go for it. And I had a good coworker, good friend. We decided to do together. It was a rough journey for her, because she was going through many struggles of her own. And unknowingly, I was still healing. Like, God is still growing me from the whole trying to take control over everything. And in some ways, I tried to take control over her pain. I wanted to heal her and help her and save her, but I couldn't. And so that whole almost year with her, was really difficult, because she was struggling and I was trying to save her. And it ended up that she left, and she left quite dramatically and angrily, and it broke me. And at that point, it was like, am I really called? Like, am I, like, I felt despair. Like, I am nothing. I'm worth nothing. If I can't help her, how can I help anyone? And I remember sitting on my bed and just crying and reading in the Psalms, and just the Lord reminded me of the Psalm when it says, like, as the deer panteth for water, so my soul pants for you. And it really reminded me, like, or taught me, not reminded me, like, I hadn't even thought of it this way before, is that I should long for the Lord as, like, that deer was panting. Like, he was thirsty, so thirsty. And, like, the Lord was reminding me to depend more and more upon him, and that I couldn't save my friend, but he was. And just to end that story, like, later we reconciled our friendship, and we don't talk now, but we are, like, we messaged before, and we're on a good page, and the Lord's working in her life. But I didn't save her, the Lord did. And that was just another step on the journey.
That's amazing. Yes. So I just to follow couple of follow-up questions with that. So then after the year you went to Burma, right? So how long were you there in Burma? How did you serve in Burma? Was it in the nursing field, or did you actually help in other areas? Because obviously in mission field, oftentimes we don't realize mission field does not look like she said, like a preacher with a Bible. No, there are so many things happening in the mission field. That's something I learned myself here. You could be a Bible teacher, you could be a trainer, you could be a educator, like basically teaching in the schools, or you could be helping in the medical field. So there are so many areas you could help in the mission field. So let's hear from Alyssa. Share us, what was it like for you? Were you still in the nursing, or you made a switch?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both. And honestly, it had to do with the situation too, politically and economically, like everything that was going on. And this year topped the hardest year of my life. It became the next one, which I'm more after that. But it's like the Lord was using each piece. So right after I arrived in 2020 is when, as many of you know, COVID soon hit the world. And it hit Myanmar a little, well, as far as numbers, it hit a little bit later. Most people believe that it was already there. But before it was all reported, we kind of hit Myanmar in March of 2020, which was a little bit later than some areas of the world.
Yeah, because it's COVID-19. It started in 2019.
Yeah.
And I know I was traveling Malaysia, Singapore in the month of January, February, because my mom retired and it was her retirement trip. And we had cold and cough. I don't know if it was COVID. But anyways, the drivers didn't like us at all. Okay, anyways, yeah, that's true. So March, this is now in March, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what happened? Please tell us.
So really, basically, the first week was probably the freest experience I had there. We were walking around doing the normal things. The first few weeks, I guess, because I got there in February. And then in March, when it really officially hit Myanmar very much panicked and closed everything down. So much so in the ways that, like, on each street, they had, like, kind of, I don't know if you call them a warden or someone who would, like, be the guard.
Security guard.
Security. So you could not leave the street. And then they would go, then they had new rules coming out all the time of, like, who could go out, when they could go out, how many times you could use the grocery store or go walk to the grocery store or not, and when you were free to do so, and then there was a curfew. So you could only leave and come at certain times, but also they would go house to house and check temperatures of people. And so as the regulations got more and more severe also, so it affected what we were doing. So the Moon family already had a church there. So I was coming to join them in the kids ministry as well as start working at this clinic. And so when I first, like as a nurse, and I was more, often foreign nurses when they go to other countries, they're looked on as their education is so high, so they put them in more of like a supervisor role. Well, I don't like that type of role personally, and feel like I had nothing to share, but that was the thing that they had to offer me. So I was supposed to come alongside them and help them with their policies and procedures and help them improve.
So you were hand in hand working with the Burmese government to kind of like...
Not exactly, not that big. It was an international clinic.
Oh, okay.
And they did work with different government organizations. In fact, the interesting thing is the first one that they were working with was macro. So we went and like they worked with a macro
shopping macro
with them to make sure that they had all of like the policies, and like they were starting to put forth what the COVID like protection policies and everything of the hand wash and all of that they were incorporating that. And I came alongside them and was observing, because this was at the very beginning. I wasn't really helping yet.
I didn't know they have macro in
they
Myanmar.
had one.
Okay.
Yeah. So we that was their first thing, but then as things started to shut down, I was more locally at their clinic, which was very small, just working with their local nurses, which they had about 3 or 4, and then trying to help them improve their policies and procedures. But as things continued to shut down, so it limited us. So we went from having church in person to then having it in the living room. And everything we were doing could no longer be in person. It was on Zoom.
Oh, wow.
So
Zoom church.
we had so much Zoom. Oh my goodness. We had English classes in Zoom. We had youth group in Zoom. We had kids in Zoom. We had church in Zoom. And I was involved in many of that. So I was just sitting on the computer a lot. And if you know me, I really despise sitting. So I was starting to feel trapped. And then with the clinic becoming also online, because they started to make me stay home as well, I started doing Zoom calls with them and having PowerPoint teachings with them. But I still felt, I really was super discouraged, because I thought I'm called to Myanmar for this reason, like to come and help the people. And I had a vision. And I thought I came in with no expectations, but realized I had a million expectations. And those were that I would be active in doing something and not necessarily sitting in a living room trapped in a house with 8 other people. And and I felt like deceived in a way, and like that the Lord and I felt cheated. I just felt so lost. I didn't know why I was there, what I was doing, and I felt so out of control. So what I had thought I gained freedom and started to creep back in. And so this was in March, and it got a little bit later in the year. The rules started to lighten up. People were still wearing masks. We were allowed to get out a bit more, allowed to go running, which I loved. But then the following February is when the government, the military, let's say, staged a coup. And so they took over the government. At that point, Aung San Suu Kyi was the ruler. And so they took over and staged a coup in the city with big tanks. And from that point, again, the restrictions started to come down even harder. And then at that point, fear started to play a role. So the very first day of the coup, I was running, and I called my mom while I was running. I was like, I had no idea. All we had heard that day is that a coup might happen, and I had no idea what a coup
Might happen. So you guys actually know before?
that something was happening in the city. Yeah, that
Wow.
day. But we didn't know what the name was. Like, we had no idea what a coup was. Like, we didn't even know what that meant. We didn't know if it was a rumor. We had no idea. And so I was just out running, had no thought of like what
Man.
happened. Yeah, what it meant. And even if we had heard some of what might be happening, we had acted like nothing was happening. So I went and was running, and I like physically, spiritually was not doing well still at this point, because again, that period in COVID had taken a toll on me. We were starting to get some freedom, so I was starting to see some light. But then the moment I get back from running, after I called my mom and I told her like, hey mom, I'm running, it's a bit busy on the roads, I need to call you when I get back. Well, when I came back, all of the power was shut down, and the like internet was gone, and we were told like, you have no idea when it's going to come back on. And that's when everything became very like real, like something was happening, and like we didn't know any idea of like when I would see them again, when I could call them again. And while it was only 24 hours, it felt like the longest like years of my life, because it could have been years, you know,
Yeah,
it could have
yeah.
been days, it could have been
Because you
more
don't know,
than-
yeah. There
you
was,
don't
yeah.
know. And the rest of the world had no idea, because nothing was getting out to the rest of the world at that point. At that point, they didn't know what was happening. My mom just knew I hadn't called her, which was rare for me. And so she started worrying. Somehow, some way, one of our family members was able to alert that something was going on, and so then they let my mom know, and they just started praying. But after the power came back on, the 24 hours later, from that point, it was never stable. You never knew when they would cut it. You never knew if somebody was listening on the other line. You didn't know if there was going to be bombs or anything going off. Curfew started again. Well, I don't think they really ever fully finished, but they became more stricter, and we would have prayer meetings in the evening right before curfew time. And they had, for a period, what they called like the pot banging. It was their way of silent protesting, because they didn't want to actively go out and fight and protest. Their way was hitting
Pot.
the
They
pots
hit the
and
pots.
letting their voices be heard through noise. The younger generation did start to do the active protests, and that's when you started to hear about more violence of the military responding, and we all became a little bit more wary of when do we go out and how do we go out, but we still felt called to be there. And I knew with all my heart, even though I wasn't doing well, that I was still supposed to remain there as long as I could. And that being there would mean something to the people who we were serving, because everybody had left. Like during the COVID time, many of the missionary organizations called their missionaries out. And when the coup started, even more missionary organizations called them out. But being sent by a church, we had the option, as well as like the backing of our church, to walk in what the Lord was calling us to. And we felt like we were supposed to stay until we could no longer do ministry. And that's when, in April, just a couple months after the coup happened, is when we got the news that they would no longer let us meet more than 5 people. So a picture of what was happening in the church that time is it was actually growing. Because since COVID stopped, all the churches, or not stopped, but since COVID had started, all the churches had really closed down basically, and really hadn't reopened, because the coup made them even more scared. And so we kept our doors open, and we were able to physically meet through most of the coup at the beginning. And we were having a lot of people come, because that's the place they could come. And a lot of them were the youth and the young adults who were just really hungry for peace and joy and just the hope that Jesus had and has. So they were coming in large amounts. And then our building owner started to get very fearful of that, seeing how many youth were coming, because the military was targeting youth. And so it was a very real security issue for them. He he believed that they could be taken.
Mm.
And of course, we wanted them to be safe too. But we also, we were praying about what we should do in our role in it.
Yeah, and you can guarantee their security
No.
in a country
Yeah.
which is not which is not in the control of a government, because by then it was military coup, right?
Yeah.
So the military has taken control. That completely makes sense. So then from there, what happened? How long did you guys manage to stay in the country?
Yeah, in April of that year, the building owner basically shut us down because we had a lot of people coming and he was limiting our numbers to 5 people. And we exceeded that in of ourselves, like the Moon family who I was with. And so we exceeded more than that. So it's like, there's no way we could continue to do ministry. And he does have a lot of power over our visas. And the situation was not getting any better. So we prayed and really felt like the Lord was saying, like, there's no way you can continue, so it's time to leave. And that was really, really difficult because the people we promised we would stay, and we tried to make it clear, like, our future is unknown, but to them we were there, like, we were there, we were staying. And so to them we broke our promise, but we never fully promised, like, we knew our futures were uncertain. But they were really sad. And a couple of my friends in particular, not all of them, but a couple of them felt very betrayed at first. And I felt like that the next few weeks that I was really supposed to spend time with them. So it was like I had planned, because I wasn't doing very well, and we each prayed separately about what to do. And at that point, I knew I physically wasn't doing well, but I still didn't really realize how much everything had taken toll on me. But I knew that I needed to go back home first. And I still didn't know why, but I knew that I needed to go back to America. And before I returned to wherever the Lord had called me next. And the Moon family felt right away that they knew that the Lord was calling them to Thailand. So I spent the next few weeks preparing to go back to America while they were preparing for Thailand, and they were going to leave like a couple weeks after me. So I spent the remaining time with just inviting my friends over and the people over, and we baked together, and it was really very bittersweet because I thought I would be there forever. And I thought that, like, God, you called me here, and so this is my forever home now. This is a place where I'll finish till I, like, die. But, like, it wasn't the end of the story. And I was devastated, though, because it's like, Lord, what could be next? Like, if you're calling me away from this, and I again still felt betrayed. And I left just feeling devastated and went back to America not knowing the future, really.
Okay. Thank you so much for sharing your journey, the experiences you had in Burma. We will save the next part, the Thailand part, and how you came back and all that, your stay in America and your recovery, basically. We'll save that for the next episode because I need to have you here one more time. Yeah, guys, again, thank you so much for watching this episode. If there is any question, hit us with the questions in the comment sections. I'll see you again next week. Thank you again. Take care. Bye-bye.